by Business Insider. The clock never winds down at Northern Quest with 24/7 gaming, great restaurants and lounges, the hottest entertainment, luxury rooms, and more.
Got your 10 seconds right here.
NorthernQuest.com. Now, alongside Jessamine
10 seconds,
McIntyre and former Cougar
Stand by,
great
all right?
Brink, here's the voice of the Cougars, Matt
Mike's
Jessamine.
up.
Live here from Mike Leach's office at Signing Day 2019. Great to be with you. Early signing period. We've now experienced the early signing period before. It's the continuation of this new setup where there are two signing periods. Great to be with you. We've got the QB Alex Brink. Jess McIntyre is here. Guys, it's the future of Cougar football. 16 new Cougs are in. AB, who do you see? What do you like? What do you see here in this class of 16 so far that jumps out to you?
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's a kind of a classic Washington State recruiting class. There's some hidden gems in there. I think these coaches have gone out and they've hit the pavement and they've found guys across the country really. And it's not that's what I think is great about Washington State now recruiting under Mike Leach. It's not just West Coast recruiting; they're all over the country. But you can't talk about this class without talking about the quarterback Jaden Deloria off the island from Hawaii, from St. Louis High School, the best high school program on the island. He's won 2 state titles now, and he's a guy that he jumps off the page in me as somebody that can come in and be a guy to make an impact for Washington State at the quarterback position. I really like what he brings to the table athletically. He's a little different. I think that's the thing that is kind of unique. It's kind of the new age air raid quarterback. Maybe will remind you a little bit of Gardner Minshew, maybe even a little more athletic than Gardner. His ability to get outside the pocket, make throws on the run. That's a dynamic that I think is really powerful in this day and age in the air raid. So I think his athleticism is great, and he throws a really, really tight spiral. The ball just comes off his hand, and he spins it, and that matters because when you play on the Palouse, it gets a little windy. The weather can be inclement. Being able to spin that ball like that really matters. So I'm excited about Deloria. The one thing that coaches told me, he's got the biggest hands in the recruiting class, 10-inch hands, which is, for a quarterback, for those that follow these sort of things, is really, really important.
That's O-line size hands.
Yeah, huge.
We talked to
huge.
Mason Miller. We'll get into hand size, and that's for gripping the football in the cold. I'm pretty sure that's why cold weather teams in the NFL draft they look at hand size to grip the ball.
Oh yeah, when you look at the NFL draft, they always talk about quarterback hand size.
Yeah.
So I think I saw a stat that every starting quarterback in the NFL has size 10-inch hands or above.
How about that? Jess, you were just talking to coaches here in the Cougar Football Complex. We are here in Mike Leach's office, and the war room is to our right, where the guys have the video up, and they're looking at some of the newest Cougs. What jumped out at you talking to some of the coaches here, Jess?
A lot of what you just said, and you can't talk about Jaden without talking about the great recruiting job they did against other places where he had offers, such as USA, Ohio State. I mean, these are big-time programs coming after him, and he joins a class that's already pretty strong here when you look at Cam and Cooper and, the other guys that they have here already. And I like what competition breeds. We weren't sure what the quarterback position was going to look like coming into this season. To see Anthony Gordon step up the way he did and beat out the competition, I think it only breeds good things. You're talking about hand size, too. I mean, that was the stat that actually drew people away from being scared of Russell Wilson's height, was the fact that he had huge hands. Yeah. I couldn't hear enough about how big hands he had. The words physical freak were used quite a bit when talking to the coaches, and that's across various positions. And you mentioned Mason Miller, who we had the chance to talk to. He mentions all these O-line guys that are north approaching 300 pounds, some of them, and they're 17 years old. They're going to get into this program. They're going to be fed the best. They're going to have access to the best training staff. We've seen what Tyson Brown's been able to do. That is the strength and conditioning coach here, building these guys into Division I athletes, and he just had a twinkle of excitement in his eye when talking about the guys that he's brought in.
By my count, I see 9, and there are 16 who are in. We may get some more today, and we'll let you know if they come across. We're on here for 2 hours from Coach's office, and we'll talk to a few coaches. We'll, of course, talk to Super Dave Emmerich. We may get a chance. I didn't get a chance to ask her. We may talk to Brittany Thackery, the director of player personnel. Yeah. But I see 9 from the state of California. Jaden Deloria is from Hawaii. Nathaniel James is a defensive lineman. He's actually from Indiana. We've got Justin Lorenz from Colorado. Cedric Pelham is from Texas, and let me get this right. Rodrick Tialavea is from Utah. So a lot of California, and I failed to mention Dylan Kalani from Washington, in-state kid from, I believe, on the west side. Very California-heavy class. Cougs have a ton of prominent California players over the last few years.
Yeah, and I mean, that's pretty standard. I mean, I think it's easy, in a way when you look at California, it's such a deep group of athletes out of that state. There's great football there. For Washington State, when you recruit out of the state of California, you're competing against other Pac-12 schools, and a lot of those athletes are very motivated when they come to Washington State because maybe USC passed on them, or maybe UCLA took their teammate but didn't take them, and then they come to Washington State and get a chance to compete. So, there's no surprise that, the majority, the bulk of this class comes out of California, and I think when you look at those kids, they're also coming from some really good programs. You're looking at Vista Marietta, you're looking at Sarah High School. I mean, these are places where those guys compete, and I think there's something about winning culture, even in high school, that breeds athletes that are winners that then carry that culture into college, and I think that really matters. I think you want guys to some degree that have been in those winning cultures, that have played with or played for coaches that have great culture. And so to me that's important. You got some legacy kids, right? You got Joey Hobart, Billy Joe's kid, right? I mean, he's a guy that you look at the pedigree, and then you watch the film of Joey Hobart. It's fun. You can see a kid that loves football. I mean, he competes. I made Matt watch the film this morning because I was so excited about it, because he comes in and you watch him on tape, and every time he catches a ball, it's like, where's the end zone? I'm going to go find it. There are a couple clips where he breaks like 3 or 4 tackles. He's dead to rights, and he ends up scoring a touchdown. So a guy like that, legacy guy. Also, by the way, his dad was a Husky, so it's kind of fun that he's coming to Washington State. I mean, there's some cool storylines there.
Yeah, I liked hearing that Billy Joe was buying Cougar gear now, and that he's all in as well. But yeah, those guys, they come from a winning culture, but they also fight for every inch, and you combine that with maybe a chip on their shoulder. I think that's just the perfect trifecta of the kind of attitude you want here.
Justin Anderson, speaking of legacies, Jess, I think it's always fun when there's family ties. There are 2 obvious Cougar family ties in this class. Justin Anderson is Aesop's cousin, and then Dylan McGinnis, his brother Hunter's already on the team. It's always fun when there's family involved.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I mean, I'm sure it doesn't hurt when it comes to the recruiting process, but that's not going to guarantee anything. Obviously, you're looking at a completely different position, and that's someone that Darcel McBath had to go hard after. And, at least that, Aesop, especially coming from a JUCO program, not having spent that much time here, has truly bought into the program here, and passing it along within the family is wonderful. And I love seeing that, because more guys you bring in from around different parts of the country, the more that crimson and gray is going to just leak out.
So the predominant position in this class is offensive line. There are 5 offensive linemen taken in this class. We'll talk to Mason Miller in just a couple of minutes. There are 5 O-linemen. Devin Kalani, 6'5", 290-pounder. He's from Lake Stevens. He's in state. That's a big boy. You've got Dylan McGinnis, just mentioned Dylan, 6'5", 290 from Chandler, Arizona. His brother Hunter is an offensive lineman on the Cougs right now. James McNorton is a 6'5", 275-pound freshman, soon-to-be freshman from Brentwood, California. Julian Ripley is 6'6", 260 from Rancho Cucamonga, and Roderick Tialavea is 6'5", 315 from West Valley City, Utah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking at 5 guys that in kind of classic Mason Miller mold, he's going to bring these guys in and develop them. And there's a couple guys that, with McNorton and Ripley that are, south of 280 pounds that are going to come in and put weight on, and they're going to be able to get bigger and build off great frames. But you also have some guys in Tialavea and Kalani that, 290, 315, they already have some size, and it may be about, more so about just getting their bodies in a position that you need them as far as adding strength, maybe changing the body composition a little bit. But I like this group, and I think we got Coach Miller joining us so he can tell us more specifically what he likes about them, because that's really what matters.
Hey, Coach, thanks for throwing the headset on.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it.
Fix my hair and everything.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Outstanding.
For those not watching, Coach is wearing a hat, so that's important. But what do you like about this class? You've got 5 coming in here, 5 big boys coming in here. Who stands out? What do you like? What do you love? What do you think you need to work on?
I like all their personalities. I think they fit in our room. Again, I always kind of say this. We're kind of walk, don't say a whole lot and do your job, and, words and actions and the whole deal. So it wasn't a whole look at me stuff. So that's one thing I like about them is their personality. The other is they're large humans, as you can tell. And all of them are 17 years old. And so they're all puppies. Like they, none of them have a stitch of hair on their face. They're trying to. It's cute. You go through there and you see them. They're trying to grow the mustache and everything. So, and I feel like since they've come on their official visits and these last couple of weeks when we were out seeing them, I felt like they were getting bigger before my eyes, especially like James and Julian. Every time I see those two, I'm like, did you grow? Like, are you taller now? And then James just looks like he's already 6'5.5". He's getting thicker too. So, so that's what I got.
You must have already kind of had a relationship to a large degree with Dylan because of his brother here. So what was that like when you were in that recruitment? Is it kind of a done deal already? Do you go visit? You already know him? What's that like?
Well, the first thing I told him, I said, I'm recruiting you, I'm recruiting you for you, not because of your brother. And I think that's very important. I've always thought that, and Hunter's doing a pretty good job for us, but Dylan brings some different things to the table. And he kind of had an interesting path. I was talking to his high school coach the other day, and I was like, he didn't end up getting a lot of offers. And he said, yeah, coach, everybody came in here and was like, wait, his brother plays at Washington State. He's committed to Washington State. And so he's going to Washington State.
We're not even going to try.
Yeah, and so that was – and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And you like kids like that. Like he knew. Last spring, he's like, Coach, I'm coming. I like playing with my brother. I love what you guys are doing up there and the loyalty and all that stuff. So to get Dylan here was kind of a different path as well. So, and that goes back to, other relationships I had him with the family at Nevada. So, yeah, getting him, and I think he's going to translate into a guard for us. And again, all these guys play tackle at their high school, and we will move them to where we see fit once they get here.
You got to be pretty proud of the culture that you've built when it comes to the offensive line. I mean, we come up here, we see Andre Dillard's jersey hanging in here. Heard of him, and if anybody's looked at Abe Lucas's recruiting picture compared to what he looks like now, they'll understand exactly what you're talking about, the kind of transition you can go from 17-year-old to when they're actually contributing on this team. But how would you describe the culture of the offensive line unit here? You said the personalities fit. They're not me guys.
Right.
If you could describe it in a few sentences.
Hi, buddy.
Super Dave is touching Mason. He may take the hat off. Super Dave's
okay.
Yeah.
Don't we want to look nice for the camera?
I know.
He doesn't want to look.
He looks beautiful, Dave.
Want to look nice.
I tried to. My hair wouldn't. Since I was so rudely interrupted by Super Dave. Lost my train of thought.
O-line culture. Clearly
the biggest thing
Super Dave's unaware.
Yeah, Super Dave just blew us all up.
So rude.
No question.
Yeah.
He heard me talking.
I know. Yeah, no, the kids pretty much, they're the first out there. They go, they do all their drills and individual stuff, and they work at a high level. We put some work in, and obviously we've been productive over the last couple of years, and obviously we need to get better at a lot of things all the time, but proud of where they were, where we've become. And, we graduate 2 this year, and we'll graduate 3 next year. So, it gives these younger guys time to grow. They don't have to,
Not pushed into action.
Yeah, they don't get pushed into action, which is what, Abe and Watson and Liam and those guys got forced into the spotlight last year real fast. So,
one thing, looking at in general the way you've recruited this room the past few years, I think that stands out to me is year in and year out, you find a guy in the state of Washington that ends up being almost kind of a hidden gem. I mean, there's some guys that we knew were going to be good, but some guys that also were projects that you guys have developed. What is it about recruiting offensive linemen in the state of Washington and what does that mean to have guys coming out of the state of Washington and coming out here to play?
I think in the Pacific Northwest in general, but the state of Washington, linemen develop later on in life, and you can walk in our meeting room and look at the guy's jersey behind me, and then the guy playing right tackle and right guard, and they're going to develop later. I mean, they're different. Okay, so and I think kids here are longer than most places for some reason, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but there's an abundant amount of tall people in the state of Washington. And I have my own suspicions. We've already brought it up. My hairy, friendly friend is running around somewhere in the woods somewhere.
The Sasquatch.
I'm not so sure.
Descendants of the Sasquatch? Is that what you're saying?
Want a big population. Things got lonely. No, but no, seriously, the state of Washington has large beings, and they do develop later. And so, I even from stretching down to the Northern California kids, they're all kind of like that. I don't have a good reason for it, but I think that holds true.
Well, we won't tell anybody your secret.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
Just a bunch of missing links committing to Washington State.
How much do you think the Pac-12, with the story you're telling about Dylan and Dylan's recruitment, where other big schools were coming in and didn't even really try, why waste the time? They wouldn't do that if there wasn't a recent legacy of success. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, your brother is playing at a school, but not just any school, playing at really the preeminent O-line school in the Pac over the last half decade. To what degree is that reputation starting to snowball with momentum for recruiting, by reputation of what Washington State offensive line specifically means by reputation in the league and maybe the whole West Coast?
I think we will always have our challenges with things, but I do believe that kids are understanding that what we do is going to translate into a future.
You're looking over at Dillard, right? Because it's not just like a great.
Here's the dynamic.
The NFL.
Here's the dynamic. Who's the highest paid guy in the NFL? What position?
Quarterback.
Okay, who needs to keep him off the ground?
Linemen.
And they throw the ball. So why would you not go to a school that teaches you how to do that?
Yeah, and the change in the NFL,
right.
The change in the offensive dynamics of the NFL really matter, right? Because now, Washington State, the air raid, was 10 years ahead of where the NFL is now, and now it's all caught up.
Right, and the other thing is, then they talk about, well, they don't run block, this, that, and the other. Okay, again, everybody kept saying that about big guy back there. Well, I just see him boat racing people off the ball. So if you're an athlete and you're strong, you can get 2 feet in the ground and run somebody off the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about Rodrick Recruitment. Tennessee, Virginia, and Arizona were also in on him. His uncle played for the Utes. He had a cousin play at BYU and is still involved in the BYU program. What was Rodrick's recruitment like? And he's a big boy, 6'5", 315 out of Utah.
Yeah, he's a man of few words. So he, we just kind of got to know each other, and I had a relationship with that high school coach throughout the years. And he said, Coach, you should try to come back in and look at him and see how he's doing. He's progressed both academically and going into his senior year. Got a lot better. He's a big kid, moves well. Again, I think some of that's he's 17 years old, and I think a lot of the size is going to fall off of him once he gets down there with Tyson and they marinate him. And, like Dylan and Devin. This is going to mess me up. I got Dylan, Devin, James, and Julian. We're done. But Devin and Roderick they're going to shrink a little bit, I think.
You're going to take a little. So Devin,
some of them are going to. Their baby fat's going to run off of them, and then Tyson's going to build them up as to where, Julian and James, and they're going to, soar up, and Dylan and Devin and Roderick, boy, that's a mouthful.
You've got, you said they're all playing tackle right now, but a few you see falling naturally into the guard position. What transition is that like for people who don't know, who don't understand the intricacies of the difference in those positions? It seems like it's a harder transition from guard to tackle than vice versa. What do you do to get them ready for that?
I think the biggest thing, just one, we have to find out what they're more comfortable with, playing on the left or the right. And we're still going through that with some of the kids we signed last year. Patrick Uchinsky, we had him at right tackle, and we put him over at left tackle during these bowl preps, and he looks a lot different over there at left tackle. So you got to mix and match and play. But I think going with our splits, we have 4-foot splits, 3.5, 4-foot splits. So they're all playing in space at some point. So the transition from one to the other is not huge. People want to know, well, you don't want to keep flipping them back and forth. It's like, I heard somebody say, if a guy's right-handed, try right and left-handed and see how that works for you. So you got to find out what's best for him, and then you try to leave them alone once they get there.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank
you. Thank you. We'll take a break, come back. We're in Mike Leach's office here at Signing Day 2019, early signing day here 2019. We'll talk to running backs coach Eric Mealy next.
An open letter to
Coach Leach's office. We are very pleased to be joined here by running backs coach Eric Mealy as we've got ourselves signing day 2019 alongside the QB AB. Wait, we lost Jess. Jess is somewhere.
I think she's maybe dabbling in the breakfast.
Oh, she's going to the buffet. She's going second round to the buffet.
J-Mac,
really good.
She'll be back. I hope she'll be back. She'll be back. Hey, so let's go. Let's talk quarterbacks. You recruited Jaden Deloria. He was also offered by Ohio State and USC and maybe others, if I'm not mistaken. You tell me, what was it like with Jaden Deloria?
Who are those people? No, classic Coach Leach. When the old hey, Mealy, hop on a plane and go to Hawaii and go get this guy. This is the guy we want, a top guy type thing. So went out to practice and kind of windy on the island that day, just throwing balls. Every ball he threw was a nice tight spiral. Not one ball fluttered. And came in after practice, and I'm like, because the height thing was a question. That was one of the see him in person, see his frame. Is he big enough? That type of thing. And I'm like, hey, man. I'm like, are you quite 6 feet? I mean, for me, down here, a little lower trajectory. Everybody looks like they're 6 feet or better. So he goes, yeah, Coach, I think I'm just a little bit under 6 feet. I'm like, all right, I like you're honest. I'm like, yeah. Do you like throwing the ball? Yeah, all right. You got an offer to Washington State, So we got back to the airport the next morning, flying back, and phone rings, and it's him, man. He jumps on board, and he hasn't wavered since. And to his credit and his family, did a great job, raising him, and really humble kid, and just the leadership, and hasn't lost a game in 2 years, and all the intangibles. Check every single box on the intangibles. So, but he hasn't wavered since. All those offers came in. He's been in contact with us the whole time. He knows this is the right place for him, and knows that he can be successful here, and he's looking forward to the opportunity.
Well, and I think that this day and age in recruiting, I think it says a lot about a kid and a family that he stayed that true to it. And then you guys also as a staff, your ability to maintain that relationship when teams like USC and Ohio State come in, and he's a good player. He's going to get the attention, and he's a kid, so you just never know, right? But, I think that says a lot about him and his leadership and what he can be outside of the physical piece, that he's able to say, hey, Washington State, that fits me. One, before Washington State came in and offered him, the offers he had on the table were not USC and Ohio State, right? So you guys, in a way, looked at the film, evaluated, said, this is a guy that fits our system, and took that chance, that leap to offer him. Then all the other schools come in after the fact, right? It's like, well, if Mike Leach, if Eric Mealy and Washington State stamps him as a quarterback, then we'll come in on him. And so I think it says a lot, again, that the recognition for you guys as you look at that tape. Boy, I was watching the tape like you. That ball spins out of his hand. It's a really natural thrower. He's a great athlete. And you love to hear the intangible piece, because in the end, and I'm a quarterback, so I can say this. We all can throw the football. But in the end, when you get on the field and the live bullets are flying, it's the intangibles, it's the inner fortitude, it's the leadership that really matters. So I love hearing you say that.
Yeah, no, he did it. The other part of practice was, he's the one breaking down every huddle. He's jogging around. He's loading up the old lineman. Everybody's kind of looking at him too. You can just kind of almost sense like the little bit of aura around him that he's got it. That magic factor. But great trip. On a side note, great trip. Only went over there for about a day, but. Nice barbecue at the house.
Did you get some sun or anything?
Yeah.
Feel good?
Barbecue at the house, the fam. Only the closest friends and family. Thank you again, Dolores, for that. There's about 35 people there.
Yeah.
close circle of friends and family. Next morning, I'm like, well, I'm not going to leave here without jumping in the ocean. So I just literally woke up, my alarm went off, jumped in the ocean, came back, showered off, and flew home.
Sure.
Got the most out of it.
We're gonna start hearing about all these kids getting recruited out of Hawaii from now on. Because Coach Mealy wants to go out there.
13 offers to Honolulu. Okay.
Yeah, right. It's a Hawaiian pipeline to Pullman.
He adds to a pretty strong quarterback room that you guys have already with Gunner and Cam. What kind of, competition does that? What does the competition there breed in the leadership and just kind of the strength of it?
Yeah, I think the potential really for all three of those guys, and like the sky's the limit for the whole room. I think they're going to push each other. Everybody kind of brings something different to the table. It's going to be interesting.
Now, is it true, if I remember this right, all three of those guys, were you in on all three, recruiting all three of those guys?
Hey, man.
Are you the QB whisperer? Is that what this is?
I'm Coach Leach's consigliere. He tells me who to go get, I go get him. That's it. So I'm just carrying out orders, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
Viva Italia.
Maybe more directly, in your running backs room, you've added Marshawn Buchanan, 6 foot, 180-pounder from Victor Victorville, California. What's Marshawn bring to you? What do you see?
Excited about him. He's a mid-year guy too, so he'll be here in January. He's got a nice frame. And we're going to feed him, and we're going to, supplements, and our strength coaches, Tyson Brown, those guys downstairs. Excited to see what he looks like, literally 6 months from now. Going to fall camp, I bet you he's about 200-plus pounds, But super productive. He missed actually a few games this year, had a little ding. They kind of just held him out and still rolled up, double-digit touchdowns easily and, well over 1,000 yards rushing, that type of thing. But he can do it all, too. Kind of a natural athlete, can catch the ball, can block. Again, that good frame, and knows how to find the end zone, man. So I'm excited to get him here.
Well, and so you talk about catching the football. There's a clip. It's like the third or fourth clip. He runs a route, comes out of the backfield, and he's on a linebacker. It's looks like a pretty good player. He breaks the kid down and catches the ball full speed, never breaks stride. And that, obviously we all love running backs that run the football well, but in the end, in the air raid, they're going to catch a lot of balls. So you want a guy that can catch the rock and do something with it. That stood out to me, was his ability to catch the football out of the backfield.
No, and that's 100%. He's got to be able to do that. Max this year, whatever he had 80 catches, whatever he's got at this point. That's a bunch of his touches coming out of the backfield, that type of thing. So. Yeah, I actually saw a practice while I was out there, and he was, again, just kind of running drills, running routes, and if it's natural and smooth, that's makes my job a lot easier. And then instead of making a guy have to go on a jugs machine every day for an hour, to figure that out. But
how much does it help to get a guy in here a semester early when you get the mid-years in?
Huge. And that's why I think, Max, as talented as he is, that if he didn't come in that mid-year, he probably wouldn't have played as much as he did. It's just a fact. They have to learn the offense, get acclimated to the speed of the game, the whole routine, school, lifting weights, and all that to be able to come in the fall camp and compete. Otherwise, you just show up in the summertime, and then a month later, you're trying to compete against guys that have been here in the system for years. So I think he'll have a chance to come in camp and make some noise, and he'll be able to grasp it over the spring, learn the playbook, and then just go out there and play.
And just you've got a growing running back room. You've got Max obviously carrying the lion's share, but you got Dion McIntosh worked in a little bit more. Now you got Marshawn coming in, and then you've got some other guys from last recruiting class who will start to add. What does it look like right now for you?
It's a good problem to have for me, and I think we want to get to the point where actually we're divvying up a little bit more. I think 2 guys is probably the right number, with Max kind of leading the way, but we want to increase that second role a little bit just to keep defenses off balance. But Javensly Bazil is a guy that the last several weeks he's really starting to. The freshman thing kind of is over with. The light bulb went off. He's practicing fast. He's playing fast. And then Thursday night football and the bowl prep. And honestly, he's one of the faster kids on the team. So that part of it is makes him exciting because he's a game breaker that every time he touches, it can go the distance. But he's pass pro now. There's assignments and all of it. So it's going to be that'll be a fun battle too next year. Kind of going into next season.
Justin Lorenz, you were also in on recruiting Justin. He's a 6'4", 240-pound defensive tackle. So it's a defensive line addition here from Colorado. He's got a whole lineage of football-playing family. His grandfather played at Wyoming, and then I think another grandfather played at Arizona, and his whole family's been playing football for few generations now. What do you like out of Justin's film, and what you saw?
Dad's an Eastern Illinois guy. Saw the helmets at the house and the home visits.
There you go.
We're chatting about that, but yeah, he's. He looks like $1 million. On his official visit, we threw him the uniform, and looks like he's a basketball player too. 4-year starter in high school.
Okay.
Kind of looks like that. He's really got that athletic build. Gets in his stance and he's flat back and he's ready to tee off on people. Super high motor guy, and for us, we just projected, since the frame looks a little bit lean up top, he's going to be a 260, 270-pound interior guy for us that's got a motor and plays with great leverage and all that kind of thing. And a super smart kid. He was actually on track to be a mid-year guy. He's going to kind of finish out his last semester of high school there, but he's high academic guy, high IQ guy, so he's exciting too to get.
The basketball thing is I think I really like. When you look at athletes in high school that play basketball, typically also, offensive line, defensive line tells you a lot about their feet, right? And a guy that, he can be tall, but he can bend and he can move and go lateral, sideline to sideline, those sort of things. I feel like, there's a couple guys we've talked about that are basketball players. Abe Lucas was a guy that was a basketball player, right? So is that something you guys are looking for?
Yeah, I think the multi-sport stuff is great too. Just in generally speaking, those guys that play more than one sport that have kind of train their muscles in different ways, but are competitors, right? In their sports that they're playing. So it's we kind of like to see that too. We were seeing if he's going to come mid-year or not come mid-year. He wanted to finish out his senior year in basketball, and we respect that. He'll come in and get to enjoy that part of his career, and then and then start the new page when he gets here in June.
So we're looking at these guys, and regardless of the star system that they're ranked with, we've said it several times that we're looking at 16 and 17-year-old kids that are nothing but raw potential right now. What do you think about the star system in general? I know there's a whole industry based on it and exists for a reason because somebody has to judge someone somehow. But as a coach going through this process, what do you think of it?
Interesting word they used, the industry of the star system.
Well, there's dollars.
Yeah, people are getting paid for it.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. And Jaden, who we love. I mean, to us, he was a 5-star quarterback, and he was 3 stars when we offered him. Now, all of a sudden, he's 4 stars. So none of that makes sense to us, and we just want to eval the film, be able to see a kid and forecast, develop him over the course of his career here, make the best player he can. That fits into our scheme on offense, defense, special teams, all those 3 things. But Coach Lee's in our big stock of that, and we don't either. So we find our guys that want to be here, chip on your shoulder. Other people have some other issues too. They take a 5-star kid who's more of an entitled guy that wants to. It's a different animal that they have. We'd rather take the kid that wants to work hard and is tough and got a chip on the shoulder, and that's a Coug.
Is there ever a common thread where you notice? I'd mentioned the grandfathers, but I didn't. I'm just reading the bio here because I'm really just learning about Justin today. But his mom also played sports. When mom and dad have both played sports, have you noticed this kid is when mom has played a lot of sports at a really high level? Also, it's a different kind of recruit as opposed to just dad or grandpa or anything like that.
Yeah, I think pedigree and bloodlines and all that. I mean, that definitely doesn't hurt the case. Personally speaking, my dad's 6 feet tall. My mom's 5 feet. Mom, thank you for that. Eric, you want to go try this hard? That's what she always used to say to me. I said, well, I probably would if I'm the same person, but that's all right. But yeah, these, again, that's all the pedigree and the family being in the sports, and they have season tickets to the Broncos. They actually just lost the state championship game, but made it to the Broncos Stadium, that kind of thing. So it's all good. A good support system.
I've got to ask you, you're playing Air Force in the upcoming Cheez-It Bowl. Have they stolen any running backs from you to get ready for the triple option? Have you had any practice backs moved over to scout team to try to get ready for it?
Yeah, and we had I guess, Jovenzu was over there, Cole Dubas was over there, Braden Potter's over there. Yeah, we got a skeleton crew on offense on our side.
Right. Yeah. You kind of have to.
They need them. They need them over there. Yeah.
When the announcement for the opponent was announced, we were all everybody's first thoughts: air raid versus triple option. It's the most interesting matchup in the country. I mean, it's like everybody wants to know what gives. You know what I mean?
I love the and it's true, but you really have to this is getting deep, but the air raid and the option are similar to the fact that. You try and spread the field out and give the ball to different people and make it so you don't know who's going to get a touch, that type of thing. Even though one's condensed, one's spread out, one's in the air, one's on the ground, but they really are, philosophy-wise, pretty similar.
It's the first thing Mike Leach told me when we were talking about it. He goes, AB, he goes what I said, what's the air raid? Is it, fun and gun like Steve Spurrier, or is like run and shoot with June Jones? He's like, no, it's like the wishbone. It's like, what? Wish? Like, really? The
distribution.
Yeah.
Right? You want distribution. You want the smoke and mirrors piece. You want to know, not sure who's going to get it, when they're going to get it, that sort of thing. I mean, I envision. I was like you when it got announced. I'm thinking, Rogers Field. The scout team running triple option. Then I'm thinking over at Air Force, they've got all these guys spread out across the field, and they're trying to figure it out. They're like, we don't
just run.
We don't run mesh. We don't run these plays.
They pull this thing, dust something off and open the playbook up.
Yeah, the magic spell book.
Right. Coach, congrats.
Yeah,
thank you, buddy. Great to talk to you.
Go Cougs.
Congratulations.
Thanks,
Go Cougs.
Congrats.
What a big haul for Coach Mealy. What a big get for Coach Mealy here as Jaden Deloria and running back and defensive tackle. I mean, Jess, this is the gem of this class, and it has been the last few years as everybody wants to know who's going to be Mike Leach's quarterback. And Jaden Deloria is in this class, he's the QB.
And that position, Mike Leach's quarterback, is a story across college football every single year throughout the entire season. But what I like to see is, especially Director of Player Personnel Brittany Thackery, sighing a breath of relief, just to. Okay, the quarterback's it was great to see, and these guys actually get 10 minutes to relax.
Well, and you just never know. I mean, the scary thing about signing day is that until until the paperwork comes in, I mean, truly anything can happen, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But the most important being that they're kids and they're trying to kind of figure out what the next step in their life is going to be. And so to your point, this morning as names start getting checked off, the staff and everybody kind of looks around and says, "Boy, whew, we did it."
Right.
Now we got to start on the next one.
You're right.
Exactly.
What's next?
Yeah, this is the early one.
Like you said.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Well, that's a good point. Each class is allowed 25 spots, but that's what you're allowed. Now, in total, you can have about 80 scholarships, but no more than 25 in a class. So we have 16 in right now, and that means that there is room for more over the next 48 hours. This signing period is 3 days long. And then there's also the more conventional kind of the heritage signing day, the February signing day, which
fax machine day.
Exactly, fax machine relevancy day, which is obviously still soon, going to come here back end of the season.
Right.
So there's still
more
to be done.
And I think that there's the good thing about this is, sitting here at 16, it gives you some room heading into February to see if there's movement as far as guys that, if there's with coaching changes, if guys decide not to sign places, you get to spend a little more time with maybe athletes that you found kind of later in the process, and then you get to continue to build those relationships, and it allows you that chance to get an athlete that you may have just stumbled upon, or an athlete that maybe he had a great senior year but didn't have any tape before his senior year, and so now you're finding some of those late bloomers. And there's space here. If you look at this class, you're heavy on offensive line. You've got 3 receivers. You have your quarterback locked in. I think you got a couple good players at the at the rush position, D line. But you got some spots to go find some DBs, and you got some spots to maybe go find some true linebackers. I do think there's some space out there in this class where Washington State's going to be able to fill some holes, and that's really good. You're also seeing these are all high school guys. There's no junior college guys in here, and I think that's by design, because if you look at the roster coming back for Washington State, you're not losing a lot by any means. And so you can take a class, you can take maybe it is 25 guys that are all high school guys, and you can build with that class all the way through, which I like. I think there's a time and a place when you do have to take junior college guys because you maybe need to fill a need right away. But if you continue to recruit well and backfill, so to speak, and create roster depth, then you can take high school athletes and truly develop them. And that has been the secret sauce for Washington State, is developing high school players by getting them in the weight room and all of that.
Yeah, we were complimenting Tyson Brown and what he does, and I don't think that we've talked to a coach today who hasn't brought him up in some capacity, and what he's able to do from a health standpoint and getting these kids weight on properly and proper nutrition and everything. They just do a fantastic job here.
We'll take a break. Come back. Matt Brock, special teams coach, will join us momentarily. I heard he was just on the horn talking to a couple of kids. We'll talk to him next, see what's going on here. It's 2019 signing day here, and Mike Leach's office says the early signing period has begun.
At US
QB AB10 and Jess McIntyre, joined here by Matt Brock, special teams coach. Thanks for throwing the headset on. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and now if you get a phone call, we got to cut you loose. That's the word, right?
Yeah, I'm going to have to jump out. Hopefully I do. We'll see.
All right, well, maybe that'll happen live here on air. That'd be great. We're here in Mike Leach's office. What do you see here in this class that jumps out to you that you're really excited about for bringing guys in? A couple of them may come here early and then working in, as a lot of 16 true freshmen will be in here this next season.
Yeah, I think first of all we got good people in the class, and it starts with that because part of recruiting is developing, and to develop guys, you got to bring in the right type of people in terms of character and that fit our program and our structure and the work ethic that we expect, and I think we have that in this group overall, and obviously that's key.
I feel like when you look at especially some of the guys in this group, I know special teams wise, lots of times you get the young guys first. Right, the guys that are good athletes, big, fast, can move, you'll get those guys on kickoff. You'll get them on teams units. So when you look at a class like this, does that excite you when you see some of the guys, a guy like Moon Ashby, right? I look at him. He's a big, good-looking athlete out there. And so, I feel like that's something for you, right, you get excited about.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. You want speed and size, obviously, on special teams. It's pretty simple, a fundamental thing that if you have that in a class, it helps you. But I think once we get here and see how they play and the drills and all that stuff, you get a better feel for it. But definitely on tape right now.
You talk. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
You talk about the personality of the team, bringing in the right people, and it just seems to be a theme that we're talking about here. You've got 17-year-olds deciding the next huge step in their lives, which will obviously direct the course of their adulthood. But then you get guys like Dylan McGinnis and you got Jaden Deloria, who were never faltered, never thought of going anywhere, despite eventually getting other offers once Washington State offered them. Just it really feels like there's a commitment to the culture here among the coaching staff and the people that you're bringing in on, at a young age.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, commitment, it seems like that word gets thrown around a lot, and some people adhere to it and some people don't. So
may need to cut you loose here.
Yeah, I'm going to have to jump out.
All right, good thing.
That's great. How about that?
Good luck, Coach.
Maybe breaking news. Maybe we'll get you back on the back end, get some breaking news from Coach. I think you just got a call from a recruit.
That'd be great. That'd be exciting.
A potential commit. So we'll have to cut that one. I actually kind of like that's kind of fun.
Yeah,
we are.
I'm a little excited. I'm like, it rang. I was like, hey, Coach, it rang. Get out of here. It's like, Coach, I've never wanted a coach off the air more than I wanted to just cut Matt Brock
That's
off.
also it's a good peek behind the curtain on what this morning's all about, right? And like you look at when you look at a class and you say, again, we talked about earlier, you say, well, I'm pretty sure we're getting these guys. But, I mean, there's all sorts of things that happen. And these guys are working. They're constantly working to make sure that it ends up coming in and the paperwork comes in. And, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, having been around someone who has recruited for my entire life,
Sure.
my father.
Bobby Mack.
Bobby Mack.
I've
Shout out to Bobby
seen
Mack.
it.
Stony Brook.
He's been doing it for longer than I've been alive. And it's the this isn't just a piece of paper, and it's not just coaches, putting wins on the board. They develop these relationships with these kids in various walks of life. You're talking about guys who, have had every advantage in life and, at their disposal, and people who have had bouts with homelessness and parents who aren't quite there for them. And the relationships that they develop with these kids, they last. It's not just doing their job. And I think that's why you see guys jump up like that and get excited about these kids committing. It's because they've invested so much of their actual hearts and souls into them.
Yeah, what was it like growing up? He's a defensive coordinator. You're a coach's daughter. You're in a coach, football household. And what was recruiting period like? Like your dad just gone for periods of time because he's out, and then but then kids would.
I didn't get to do this.
For sure. But like you must also have seen firsthand those connections lasting beyond the 3-4 years they play.
Oh yeah, I mean there are players that are in their 40s right now that they still get together every single year in New York City. All these guys from Hofstra, which is where he was for the majority of my youth, and yeah, they still call him. I still know plenty of them. Then there's tons of them around the league in the NFL right now too. So they just go beyond. Football is actually, even though it's so prevalent, and you know this better than anyone, around the country, it's a very small world. And it all starts with these calls that these kids are making today and the commitment that they're making. That signed piece of paper just writes a huge story in their life. And it's very exciting to see that. So I got giddy too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, truly, I know for me, my personal experience is, when I came from Eugene, Oregon, and I think, I knew about Pullman, I knew about Washington State, but you really don't know exactly what you're getting into. And, the football program, the coaches, the players, they become your family for those 4 or 5 years. And I know for me, it was the best decision I ever made. I mean, I met guys that are in my wedding. I met coaches that I still talk to this day. And, Tim Rosenbaugh, who recruited me and was the quarterback coach here at Washington State. I mean, he's a guy that, I call monthly just to check in, and a guy that I would turn to, like a second father to me. And certainly when I was in college and I was away from home. And I think, that connection that people have, is so important to these athletes.
Yeah, looks like we might.
We're getting Matt Brock on headset here. Let's get
Coach is coming back.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll get the update on this phone call here, which is, Coach, what's the word? I had a phone call. If I may put you on the spot, if you don't mind.
No, that's all right. Yeah, it's going to work out. It'll be good, and things happen for a reason. So
all right,
we'll go from there.
All right, good. All right, we'll figure it out then. We'll keep you here for a few more minutes. So
right.
Right toward the top of the hour, we're kind of talking about the recruiting process for these kids. They're trying to figure out life and what's the next step. And you guys are that like what just happened here is kind of a peek into what it's like for you. I don't want to say 24/7, but just about this, especially this time of year. This is what your life is like. You're always on the phone talking to kids.
Yeah, well, to their defense too, the kids' defense. They're young and they're making a big decision, and so that's part of it as well. And as they get closer, social media plays a part into it. They listen to people, right or wrong, that maybe do have best interests in mind or don't. And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. So that's just part of it, and we know that as coaches, and that's the the roller coaster ride you're on, especially with this early signing day.
Yeah, social media is the whole other.
Yeah, see, I didn't. I mean, in all fairness, and social media when I was coming out of high school was not a thing, right? And so, my experience was, very early on. I was, I got recruited by Boise State. I was committed to Boise State. That was kind of my best offer. And then Washington State came in late. And, that was truly a one-to-one conversation with, a coach at Boise State and then my family and then coaches at Washington State. But nowadays, I mean, with social media, it's, you got fans, you got, other players, you got coaches, obviously. You got all these people that are thrown into this, melting pot that's stirred together and then you got in the middle of that, you have a 17-year-old that's trying to make a decision. So that's a really hard thing, I think.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard for them to remember what the priorities are in the whole thing.
Yeah, 100%.
And who to trust. And I think it's even more that way if they don't have a strong influence in their life as well.
Yeah,
whether that be coach, whether that be mom, dad, grandma, whoever it is, if they don't have a strong influence to direct them, that's where things can happen.
We see Twitter used so much now on the recruiting side of things, but, I mean, you have to be where the kids are, right, in order to communicate with them, relate to them and everything. How much has that changed your process?
Well, the Twitter process is obviously something that is taking a little bit of a backseat just because of text messaging now where we can do that. But you still have to constantly be on there. It's just branding, right? If they're seeing Washington State more than they're seeing the next guy down the road, that's a positive for our program. So whether you like social media or you dislike social media, it's here to stay. So we've got to make sure we're efficient in it and utilize it as a weapon.
I want to pull it back a little bit from today, and while I have you, talk a little Cheez-It Bowl, because that's not too far in the distance. Practice today is at 1:30. How has bowl prep been? How much have you kind of start out, if I'm not mistaken, you start out with some of the youth, getting a little bit more reps, and then you kind of get into like a regular game week, trying to get ready for Air Force?
Yeah, the first, I think, 6 practices were more about developing our players and our young guys. And now it's about getting into really 2 game weeks. You try to rep a mock game week. So yesterday was like a Tuesday. Today will be like a Wednesday. And getting ready for Air Force best we can.
We're here with Matt Brock, special teams coach here, getting ready for the Cheez-It Bowl. Brinker, we were joking with Eric Mealy about like Air Force prepping for the air raid, Washington State prepping to try to stop the triple option. But really, special teams has been, as much an element of winning as any of the 3 phases. I mean, Blake Mazza is one of the top kickers in the country. You've got the Groza finalist for the first time in school history. What an accomplishment! I mean, he's got a heck of a leg. He's just a great story.
Yeah, he's really developed. He did everything that we asked him to do, and it's credit to him and the work ethic and just the consistency of his approach on a daily basis. That's why he's been successful, right? Consistency is something that I think we lack just in general in society, right? So it's not natural, to be consistent, and he's been consistent. That's why he's been successful, in my opinion.
It must have been nice to take him to Atlanta for the awards. Obviously, Rodrigo Blankenship is some pretty tough competition. He was going up, but what was it like just to take Blake Mazza there?
Yeah, he's, I think he enjoyed it. His family enjoyed it. I didn't see him the whole time. I flew in there from seeing a couple other recruits and flew in the day of, but I know he enjoyed the event, enjoyed the whole week, which he should. He earned it. So
feels like it's so super mental. I mean, I feel like kicking more as much as any position's just like keep the heart rate down, breathe, take deep breaths, and have your mental state right. Because a lot of guys have big legs. Not a lot of guys make big kicks.
No, there's definitely the middle part of it. I'd say is 80+%.
Do you kind of work with him on that, or do you actually like purposely not work with him on that because you don't want to get in his head? Like, what's the art there?
Again, I think some of that's just in his DNA, or it's not in his DNA. I don't think I'm not going to sit here and act like some kicker whisperer.
The guru.
No, I just think you have to try.
They either got it or they don't.
Yeah, to a degree, but he's worked it too. And again, and I'm going to say the same word over, but the consistent approach of just one kick at a time, one rep at a time, and the nitty-gritty details of doing the job right over and over. Then you just go out there and you play, right? And your body takes over. So that's a credit to him.
Last year it was Kainoa Wilson, and this year it's really been Tyrese Ross to a large degree, who's had a lot of special teams plays. Kainoa made a ton of special teams plays. When do you know you've got the guy who's going to kind of lead you in special teams tackles, finishing plays off, getting to the football, and in what looks like, it's such organized chaos, those big explosive plays?
Yeah, I don't think until you actually play the game, but you try to determine who's going to be your players that if you get them in position to make a play, whether that be blocking a kick or a punt or tackling on kickoff or making a key block. It's all, to me, special teams, a big part of it is personnel matchups. So you're trying to create that best you can within your structure or your scheme or whatever it might be. And so Tyrese has done a nice job of that. Travion Brown's done a nice job of that.
Travion's had a bunch,
And then Travell Harris is a Swiss Army knife. He can do it all. And so you just try to find those guys, put them in position, and then the energy level of the group around them, you try to make sure that that's at a high level.
How many special teams guys, like I just mentioned, the guys who finish plays off, who make tackles, how many guys kind of by design, at least to a degree, they're not going to make the tackle? They're not going to, sort of by design, but they're going to block. They're like great special teams guys for just kind of being the cog in the wheel and being an important part of the whole thing. Who would those guys be this year who have played well but don't get stats for it?
Yeah, I think one guy that definitely is that type of guy is Tristan Brock, on our wedge. Brian Green on our shield on punt. I mean, you're talking about the guy that's really the keys to my house is in his hands, right? I mean, if he allows penetration in that shield, it's going to get blocked. So there's multiple guys. Those are just a couple, but all those Aesop Winston on the backside of our kickoff return unit. I mean, if he doesn't make the cutoff blocks on the backside, we're not successful. Well, when he does, nobody sees it, right? They just see Travell.
Right.
And so there's a lot of people that go unnoticed that have big parts in it.
Thank you, Coach. Congratulations
Thank
on the class.
Thank you.
That's Matt Brock, special teams coach here. We'll come back top of the hour next. Super Dave Emmerich joins us. We'll have Brittany Thackery on. We continue here with 2019 early signing day. Live here from Coach Leach's office. It is early signing day 2019. There have been 16 new Cougars that have come across here and have committed to Washington State. The future of Cougar football. It's always fun to get a feel for what the coaches have had, what conversations have gone on to get everybody in here. And we're going to talk to the Chief of Staff, Chief of Staff, Super Dave Emmerich, who's about to sit down here and throw a headset on. And we've got 16 new Cougs, as I alluded to, and the architect of all this, the man behind the curtain is Super Dave. Of course, we're here with Alex Brink and Jess McIntyre, and now Super Dave Emmerich. Thanks for throwing a headset on, buddy.
Yeah, I'd hate to take all the credit, but I'm going to take all the credit.
What jumps out at you in this class? And maybe we just start with Jaden Deloria. How excited are you about the QB? Everybody wants to know who's going to lead the nation in passing in the future.
I'm incredibly excited about him. Just his personality, his mindset. He's a winner. He's never lost a high school football game, 30-something and 0.
Wow.
He's a guy who's going to come in here and whether he can or can't start next year, he thinks he's going to. He just has that mindset of I'm going to win this job and I'm going to compete and I'm going to win. And just his mentality it's pretty neat.
What is it about that high school in Hawaii? I'm sure that you take quite a look at it on a regular basis just because of the guys that have come out of St. Louis. What is it that they do there? Something in the water? Or?
They've got some dudes, that's for sure.
Yeah,
They've got both sides of the ball. I mean, they have, it's them in Punahou every year. But yeah, St. Louis has gotten them lately. But just, they grow up in it. They're engraved to win. They only have a couple close games a year, but they've won them obviously lately. So, it's a school we need to continue to recruit, and they got players next year, and they'll have players the year after that and the year after that. So, if we can get some kind of pipeline started by Jaden, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, a couple of good quarterbacks out of there too. Tua and Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
I mean, so,
we've had one here.
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. Jason Gesser, yeah, for sure. Hey, so Joey Hobart, everybody wants to make the link with his dad because he's a Husky. And how much have you talked to? I think his dad tweeted something out about how he's excited about his son's a Coug.
Yeah, I don't think in a million years Billy Joe Hobart would have ever thought he was tweeting a "Go Cougs."
You're right.
He's a pretty passionate Husky, but he's so supportive of his son, and Joey's a great kid. Joey's just a football player. Never comes off the field. Plays offense, plays defense, plays special teams. Just a tremendous talent. Just another guy, competitive. He may not have all the physical tools as far as being 6'5", 200 pounds or anything like that, but boy, he's tough and he's a competitor.
What about the other two receivers in this class? Cedric Pelham, Keyshawn Smith. Both got good size. Looked like on tape. I mean, they can both really run. What do you see from those two guys?
Cedric Megatron Pelham, is that the one you're referring to?
That's the one. Yeah.
No, big physical kid. I mean, he takes just as much pride in blocking. You'll see that on his film as he does catching the ball. But he made a ton of plays. And then Keyshawn Smith is a guy who, Coach Spurrier worked with him at one of those camps we went to in California and really liked him in person. And then he's a guy who's recruiting really, really, blew up late. He had Tennessee, he had Boise State, some other schools came in on him, but loved coming out here, wants to catch the ball. So obviously a great fit.
Yeah. So when you're looking at, we actually had talked to Mason Miller earlier today, and you get 5 offensive linemen coming in here from kind of a 30,000-foot view. What's the progression like, and when because these are the guys that probably have to put on the most weight, get the most experience out of a recruiting class, what's a reasonable progression rate for them?
Well, I mean, it's where your program's at, and I think your offensive line's a good sign of where your program is and where you need to be. But yeah, I mean, if they come in and redshirt sophomore, junior years, if they're contributing, that's probably a win. When 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, those guys had to play early. They had to play as freshmen or redshirt freshmen, and that's not ideal. They're just not big enough, strong enough, ready to compete in the Pac-12 conference. So as long as we have the depth, and there may be a guy here or there that can, Andre Dillard and Abe Lucas, that can play as a redshirt freshman, but typically they're 3rd, 4th, 5th years when you want to see them out there.
We haven't talked a ton about a couple of the defensive players. Justin Anderson, who is Aesop's cousin, and then Moon Ashby, who is from the Bay Area, also San Jose, a 6'4", 200-pound rush linebacker. Let's start with Justin. What do you see out of Justin Anderson? 6'1", 180 is what he's listed at.
Yeah, he's come out here 2 or 3 times. Just a great kid, great personality, great family. Made a lot of plays on a very good football team. He's a little skinny right now. You guys sometimes lie on those heights and weights. I don't know if you knew that.
Well, do you blame that on me?
Well, you and Bobby.
I don't think. That's exclusively Bobby. And really, I know
Bobby's a bit of a liar.
Notice how they're all round numbers on here. Everybody's 180, 190, 200.
Yeah. That's just the way our scale works.
Sure.
Right. But he's a playmaker. He'll have a chance. Obviously, defensive back's a real need for us. We'll look to sign some more in the later signing period. But he'll have a chance to play right away as long as he can put on some size. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with Moon Ashby. Yeah, the ways you can take that in Martin Stadium on Saturday night.
A lot of
The moon is out in Pullman tonight.
A lot of planetary
He's
references.
already practicing those calls.
It's very exciting.
He's got a full list.
It's really exciting.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the future, if you'd put some names and you want us to recruit towards names,
that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll do that.
We can work it though, kind of go backwards and start name and then go into
and then
find a football player with that. That'd be awesome.
Defensively, sorry. I want to stay here because there's two.
He wants to talk football. Apparently,
you don't want to talk about. Oh, sorry. I want to talk football. Give the people what they want.
I created a Twitter and said, "Give the people
true.
what they want."
That's true.
Wow,
That's a good
we
point.
do have to touch on that.
People who are watching, listening, there's a Twitter out there that's really taken over the world. And if your internet has been slow recently, I apologize. It's because my Twitter feed's blowing up so much. At Dave Emmerich, WSU.
Yeah, it's a great follow.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? I've noticed on your Twitter account that the excitement level of your tweets seems to be way above your normal everyday excitement level.
I'm a happy guy.
Yeah. Well, it comes
enthusiastic.
across very enthusiastic on Twitter.
A lot of exclamation points.
Liberal use.
Well, it's the last week of recruiting. Now that'll taper off a little bit. There'll be a lot of periods.
Gotcha.
Tone it down.
All right. Well, will you talk to me about these safeties, Hunter Escorcia and Jackson Lata'amua? Because you talk about DB being a need, not necessarily safety, but bringing two guys in that, I was talking to Darcel McBath. Could be nickels, could be safeties. Just depends when they get here on campus. But good-looking players, good size, good physical tape.
Yeah, Jackson's just kind of an old-school football player. Physical guy, is always around the ball, making tackles. They're still playing. I mean, he's on a really good football team.
Oh, wow.
Or they finished last weekend. I think that was the state championship game. Yeah.
We're not going to hold you to it.
Yeah,
okay.
they went all the way to the end.
I will.
They went all the way to the end. But
we'll fact check.
And Hunter's a tall, rangy guy. He runs the hurdles and track. A big-time program as well. But, yeah, those guys, they'll have a chance to compete next year and get in the mix, just depth standpoint, and who knows? Mm-hmm. Who knows how far that'll go.
Brittany Thackery is your player personnel, and I don't know that her name gets mentioned up front quite a bit.
I try not to.
But we know how hard she's working behind the scenes. What's a day in the life, or I should say, what have the past couple of weeks have been like just for you guys working the back channels in the recruiting process?
Yeah, you never know what a 17, 18-year-old kid's really thinking. Even like Coach Nickel got mad at me today because we hadn't gotten, Joey Hobart's papers in yet. He's like, it's Joey Hobart. He's coming here. Well, anything can happen. So I think we're pretty much on edge the last couple of weeks, just trying to figure out, who knows what's going to happen, who's going to come in on our guys, who's going to, with these new signing periods even. Well, there's some kids that I think I'll sign in February instead of signing in December. Well, that's not what we're doing here. So a lot of figuring that out, figuring out the logistics. We have a lot of visit weekends. We had them all throughout the season, and then the last few weekends we've had those, and Brittany sets those up and does a lot with that. But yeah, I hear your guys are going to have her on.
Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah. Ideally, if we'll talk to her people,
like to.
And maybe we'll be able to work it out.
We tried to replace you with her.
Yeah, we tried.
They wouldn't.
Well, she was the manager of player personnel. Now she's the director. So you might want to.
Yeah, we'll make
free some time.
We'll make sure to get it right.
Of course. Assistant to the regional manager.
Right.
Hey, did the NCAA get two things? They've controversial at times, but did they get two things really right over the last couple of years with the early signing period and then the redshirt rule where you can play 4 games?
Yeah, those are big for us. The early signing period, it locks them up. Schools can't come in on you guys when they miss out someone late. That helps us out quite a bit. A little less panic, uncertainty, just because schools don't know how their classes are going to unfold. If they don't sign 25 today, they don't have to come after our guys or any other school's guys necessarily. They can still sign guys in February. So that really helps. And the redshirt rule just makes all kinds of sense. Just give these guys a sense of where they're at within, the Pac-12 competition. So many stories 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago of guys playing 1 or 2 games and really burning a redshirt year, burning an entire year.
Yeah.
It just wasn't fair to those kids. You look, there's some guys on our roster. Fred Maligoa, as a freshman didn't play very much, but we needed him for depth. Riley, obviously had some health issues. And even Riley Sorensen played a little bit as a freshman, where I'm sure he wishes he could have had this rule as well. So it makes a lot of sense for the kids. And it makes a lot of sense for us too. You kind of get a sneak peek of what you have in a guy.
How often do you kind of look back? Do you ever look back at, like, you mentioned Riley Sorensen, you mentioned Freddie Maligoa, and like look back at classes and not that you'd get nostalgic about it, but just as you're building all this up, like how much do you use past classes, what worked, what didn't, or is it always because it's the early signing period didn't even used to exist not that long ago, so it may have totally changed the game on you. But how much is there kind of a blueprint, I guess, for this, or is it always evolving and different?
Yeah, I mean, you go after the best players you can get, and there's places where you go back to over and over again if you have a lot of success, but we do it a little different. We always try to sign a full and complete class. So even if we don't necessarily need a running back, we're going to sign a running back. Just you never know where attrition is going to take place in your roster. Who's going to transfer, who's going to flunk out, who's going to graduate early, whatever, who's going to get hurt. So we always want to make sure our depth is there for all the positions. So we look to sign a full and complete roster. Always a huge emphasis on linemen. Just they're hard to get. So getting 5 good ones on the offensive line, and we'll have some good ones on the defensive line as well. That's always going to be a huge priority for us.
Also, there's an element of projection too, right? Because a high school defensive end may not be a Pac-12 defensive end. He may be a Pac-12 nose tackle or D-line. So you're looking at kind of where they might go also, right?
100%, especially, a real skinny O-lineman. We love skinny O-linemen. We love putting the weight on them. Maybe a tight end that grows into an O-lineman. We've done that quite a bit. But, you look, a lot of times you'll sign, safeties who might eventually be linebackers who might eventually be DNs who might eventually go inside. There's quite a bit of that, yeah.
Do you kind of pursue tight ends in that fashion? Cole Madison was a tight end, converted offensive lineman, a good one too. But when you're looking, since you don't use them on the offenses, do you still recruit them hard, or is that a position that maybe you'd focus somewhere else?
Well, tight ends for us are most likely going to be offensive linemen. You
Right.
have to be pretty special to be able to play. It's just basically, a really big inside receiver. So you'd have to be able to move pretty well. We recruit them. Typically a tight end who thinks he's Rob Gronkowski doesn't want to come here and just block. So, that's the challenge. But a lot of times those guys are, just skinny, kind of overlooked high school guys. You can get them, and they're athletic for being offensive linemen. So put a bunch of weight on them, and they wind up playing for the Green Bay Packers.
I think the first time I ever heard Mike Leach say the 2 words tight end was like 2 weeks ago or last week. Charles Barkley.
Was he referring to you?
I was not referring to me, but I'm like Charles Barkley, but different. But he said Sir Charles could have been a tight end for him.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
All right. I don't know.
He doesn't know, Chaz.
Well, and it feels like
I know he said it. I don't know that Charles Barkley could be a tight end. I mean Charles Barkley now,
or a great tight end. Well, not like
30 years ago.
Maybe. Well, I don't know. He's pretty athletic. Probably not today. His golf swing needs some help, though. Have you seen that, AB?
Yeah, it kind of looks like yours.
Hitching the easy now.
I can attest to that.
I'm kidding.
Easy.
I'm kidding. It's totally a joke.
Yeah,
He's a murderous swing.
Oh, it's just his fault. All right, can we keep you for another segment?
Sure.
All right, let's take a break. We need to take it. We'll come back. We're live here in Coach Leach's office as it's early signing day 2019. 16 new Cougs have come across.
An open
Live here with Alex Brink and Jess McIntyre. We've got the Chief of Staff, Super Dave Emmerich, with us. It's the second hour of our show. We'll go till noon here from Mike Leach's office. I want to ask you about Nathaniel James, a 6 foot, 260-pound defensive lineman from Indiana.
Oh, you would love this kid. Have you seen his videos?
This is
the squat.
Yes.
The bench.
I'm glad we
What's
brought
he do?
up
He's got lifting videos.
750. He goes 750 on the back. He goes 430 on the bench.
Oh, it's
right
so
now.
weird that Chazanow would be well versed in this.
I mean, well, it's first of all, it says it here, but I did know because I watched the videos. There are videos.
I'm guessing he probably likes protein bars, beef jerky, that whole deal.
You have to be 6 foot 260 and bench 430.
Yeah. No, he's one of my favorites because he was the first kid to commit.
Uh-huh.
And then the first kid to sign this morning. No drama.
Love that.
Just a great kid. Always a smile on his face. Has a neat story. Just his coach, his family kind of took him in, and really has overcome a lot. And he's a strong kid, and excited to have him here.
Well, help me out on his story and how you got in on him, how he's a Coug, because he's got two brothers in the SEC and then another who stayed local at Indiana. He had one brother play at Georgia, one play at Auburn, and another play locally at Indiana, and then Indiana State, and then Marshall. Those are all brothers, a huge family that all played football.
Yeah, and his parents weren't really, towards the end, weren't really in the picture. There was some things there, and the high school coach adopted him. Him and his brother who plays at Indiana. And Coach Brock has a really good relationship from recruiting just the high school coach, Coach Bless, and kind of got in that way. And then just the kid came out here and wanted to do something different, wanted to get away, and came out actually last spring on an official visit for the spring game, and just fell in love, committed then, stayed committed, the entire time, never any drama to it. And like I said, first in the line today.
So who else stands out to you? If we're looking at this thing from a whole, you've got all freshmen, so that must be nice. You've got a group of guys growing together. We were kind of talking about the importance of that. No transfers yet, and we do know that the junior college kids might come along a little bit later. But what stands out to you about this class as a whole? Really?
Well, they all stand out, or else we wouldn't have signed them. Right?
Yeah.
Really excited about, obviously those 5 linemen, a great group to have all together. Put less emphasis on junior college. Not that we don't continue to use it as a resource, just probably went a little too heavy on it last year for whatever reason, and want to get back kind of. We always, want to sign between 0 and 5 junior college kids, and this year it happened to be 0 right now. But excited about those receivers. Think all 3 are big-time guys, playmakers that are fun to watch. Their highlight films are all really fun to watch with the ball in their hands. And then the D linemen, I guess there'll be more to come, but the 2 that are currently signed are guys that are explosive, get in the backfield.
One thing, I noticed on here, you got a couple guys that are rush type linebacker guys, but no maybe true stand-up backers right now. You mentioned potentially filling some DB spots. I mean, do you think linebacker's a spot, or do you feel good about the guys on the roster, or where
I think we'll still have to sign a linebacker. So I think we'll have 5, 6, 7 spots left after today, and probably majority of those will be devoted to DB, but there will be a linebacker.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys graduate a few wide receivers. What does that group look like moving forward? Because you get a lot back.
Yeah, I mean, man, so much depth that we lose some talented guys, but I don't think anyone's really concerned about our receiver group next year. Just so many guys come back, and then being able to throw Jameer Calvin in there, who's obviously a great player his freshman and sophomore year, had to, redshirt this past year. But yeah, I think everyone's feeling pretty good, especially being able to get Calvin Jackson back. He showed glimpses. There was a time on the sideline before the Oregon State game, a young Justin McIntyre came up to me.
Thanks for calling me young.
And said, hey, any surprises this week? And I said, yeah, watch out for Calvin Jackson. And lo and behold, Calvin.
And guess who predicted it? See, you were supposed to allow me to present that on the air just by sheer instinct.
Oh, that was your instinct.
It was my instinct, not
Jessamine told me to watch out for Calvin Jackson.
That came directly from Dave Emmerich.
Got a little pop in the step there, warming up today.
Looks
like he's going to have a big game.
Yeah, I keep an eye out for him.
How often do you recruit true freshmen and think, okay, this could be like a Cosmos, this could be like a Travion, where they're going to make immediate impacts, and we can't redshirt them because these guys are going to have to play right away? Or how much is that just purely circumstance of, be it they outplay whoever was ahead of them in camp, or not that we ever have injuries, but whatever might happen.
Haven't yet.
You're right. Never has happened.
100%.
But circumstance of game flow, we'll call it, would dictate that.
Yeah, I think very seldom do you recruit a kid thinking he's going to play next year. Now, circumstances definitely dictate it, and you see a kid that's just kind of a freak athlete, and this is where that 4-game rule comes into play. You start playing the Travion Brown those first, second, third game, and like, wow, this guy's pretty good. He's probably going to, we can't redshirt him. He's helping us this year. So it all depends. If they can help us win a game, we're always going to play them. But, yeah, I don't think you recruit a kid, hey, this kid's going to start from signing day. Now, he could come in and earn the job, absolutely. But it's hard to say, yeah, he's definitely penciled in as a starter, December 18th.
Couple guys that are early enrollees, right, in the class. Is it, we've noticed in the past there's, there'll be more, there'll be less. A lot of it has to do with, I think people kind of wonder why is that. And typically it has to do with, the athlete kind of where they're at as far as when they want to graduate, or maybe they're playing a winter or spring sport. Is that right?
Yeah, and there's benefits to both. I mean, it's tough kind of coming in at midterm if you're a high school student coming in, because you're not really with a true class. So
right.
If there's only 2, 3, 4 of you, you don't get to be able to bond with the class, and it's tough, that transition. But obviously going through spring ball is definitely a positive. But you miss out on your senior year. So there's pros and cons to both of these. Only 2 this year right now. We'll see if anything else pops through, but Marshawn Buchanan, for instance, is a guy that he'll be able to probably have an opportunity to play next year, just going through spring ball, just right. Position of need there for us. Plus, he's a really talented kid.
What are the next couple months for you in between early signing day and actual letter of intent day in February? What are those 2 months like?
Well, I figure I'll take quite a bit of naps.
Will you really? Like, will you be? Does it calm down, or does it just stay fired up?
No. I mean, you keep going. We'll keep trying to fill out this class, and then we'll move on to the next class. We'll start setting up junior days and stuff like that. So, yeah, there'll still be plenty of stuff to do. Hopefully I get the opportunity to do a pregame show with you guys before the bowl.
Well, let's talk about that, actually. We will be live. We'll be live the night before in Phoenix, near the ballpark. I think we still need to get the specific location locked in, but it will be near, I am told.
It'll be tough to get to.
Well, it will be near the – no, it will not be tough to get to. Oh, for you,
yeah.
We'll send you an armed car.
Yeah. So
helicopter?
Sure. Okay. Well, you'll be in there. You'll be in Phoenix, won't you? The day before the bowl game?
Not next to the stadium.
Well, we can arrange that. We can get you transportation.
We'll figure it out.
Well,
they have public transportation down there.
We can get you one of those bicycle guys to bring you down.
Scooter, like we saw in San Antonio.
Scooter, yeah.
I require police escorts.
We can do that, too.
We can do that.
We'll make that happen.
Where's Pop Chalk? He can set that up.
He absolutely. He can make anything happen.
Right.
So getting to the point here, we'll be on for an hour from a lovely establishment to be confirmed.
Watering hole?
A watering hole of sorts.
For the Cougs.
For the Cougs.
And last year I was on that. It was great. It was packed.
It'll be safe.
It was packed.
We'll be near.
Standing room only.
Yeah. Because they heard I was coming.
Correct. Yes. We'll be near like the bar crawl. There's a bar crawl, like a Washington
We're
State.
We're going to be part of the
We're just one of the stops.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we're going to start it, and then they're going to go.
I was going to say, you three, and the game's not till 8:15 the next night.
Yeah.
Well, we're professionals.
Go Cougs.
Dave. Sometimes it's thirsty after those
give
shows.
the people what they
It's a lot of
want.
talking. It's a lot of talking. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you. Congratulations.
And always a pleasure. We have this podcast that you people need to listen to. But
you people.
Our loyal listeners.
Yes. Drew's pumping his fist.
Right.
Hollingshead.
Drew's hated on the podcast.
Yes.
We need to get Jessamine on
we do.
at least an episode next year. I tried to make it happen this year. These guys
so did I. She turned it down.
Oh,
no,
really?
She turned it down.
I don't recall receiving.
Yeah, you didn't turn it down.
Invitation.
That's not true. I did. That is
lost in your
texting her right now.
That's a lie.
He doesn't want to be outshined.
That is a lie.
I'm not allowed to work out with him either.
That's a lie also. This is all lies. Hey, congrats.
You guys have a great
Super
day.
Dave. All right.
Thanks, Dave.
2019 early signing day continues here from Mike Leach's office. We'll try to get Brittany Thackery if she'll be so kind to lend us some time. We'll talk to her in just a moment here from Coach's office. signing.
Yeah, we didn't. I didn't. We didn't have the the press conference.
We're joined here by Brittany Thackery. Brittany, congratulations. First of all, thank you for taking the time.
Of course.
Of course, Jess McIntyre is with us as well. Brittany, you are the Director of Player Personnel.
Correct.
Congratulations on the title bump there.
Yes.
Now, I want to take a step back. Let's get into the Cougs in just a minute.
Okay.
But first, I want to make sure everybody's very acutely aware of your athletic achievements.
Oh, no.
How many times? So what sport did you play at Arizona?
I was a softball player.
You were a softball player. How many times were you on the All-Pac team?
4.
How many times were you an All-American?
4.
How many
years did you play?
4.
Oh, there we go.
How many College World Series did you get to with the Wildcats?
3.
Wow. How about that? Wow. You were talking about competition.
Yeah, we got a baddie on our hands.
Most accomplished person in this room
No
right
question.
now, by far.
Someone
Maybe
who
the building.
obviously understood the recruiting process before getting the job that you have now because you've been through it yourself.
Definitely,
just in a different sport.
Yeah.
How has it changed since you went through it yourself?
Oh
to
my
now?
gosh. Well, social media was not really a recruiting tool at all when I was being recruited. So, and I remember it was all email, and it came to a point where my dad's like, all right, what are your top 10 schools? Like, that's who we're going to send an email to. And so it was just totally different. There was no graphics being sent out or, it just wasn't, it kind of wasn't like that. And nobody really cared when I committed anyway, because
well, that's
just not true.
That's not true. Humble.
We knew one day we would.
Very humble.
Yeah, there you go.
Tell Director of Player Personnel,
Yes.
what does that entail? What's your role here with Cougar football? And then we'll get into signing day a little bit.
So I kind of always split my job in half. So half of it's kind of the recruiting. I work with Dave Emmerich really closely. I'm doing all the visits, social media, writing them letters.
Is that hard? It must be hard.
No, he's a great boss. Yeah. He's a great boss. I must admit. I haven't always had great bosses, so I appreciate working with him. He's great, and he gave me this opportunity. So I'm forever indebted to him for that.
He's listening.
He's right there.
Yeah, right.
The other half, I take care of the guys, currently on our team. So academics liaison, compliance, anytime we need to do community service, those sort of things. I kind of try to help them with anything that could possibly they would need help with that's not coaching football. So I try to be there for them. I do housing, and I help all the freshmen with their transition in. I know them and their parents through the recruiting process, so it kind of just makes sense. But I kind of just jack of all trades, just kind of do what they need me to do, kind of help them out.
That is a very small amount of people to fill a whole lot of cracks when it comes to that.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it must be nonstop.
Yeah, it's pretty nonstop, but I think it's easier for them. They just have one person, and I just kind of figure out whatever they need. Yeah, it drives my husband crazy sometimes. I'm like, it's 10 o'clock. He needs my help with this. He's like, go to bed. I'm like, but I have to help him with this. So.
Well, and the transition piece I think is really cool. I mean, helping young men transition from high school to college. We heard Dave talk a little bit about how hard the transition is if guys are coming in mid-year.
Yeah.
Obviously the whole group then comes in the fall or late summer. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that is a big transition. I mean, you're young. You're coming to a new place. Some of these kids are coming all the way across the country. So your role is very important for these young men.
Yeah, I try to make it as seamless as possible. And I know for the parents, I do it every year. So I try to remember for them, sometimes it's brand new. They have no idea all the paperwork that needs to be turned in, what they need to do, where they need to go. So I try to just keep it, as basic as possible and be there as much as they need, because I know for them it's this big picture, even though I do it so often, but I try to remember that for them it's all new.
So you were in on and aware of all of these 16 new recruits, and so you said you're working with Dave Emmerich. You're trying to make all this happen. How much interaction? How many? How closely did you know some of these guys when they came here to campus? And then what's this day like? In your world, you're thinking about this guy's got to get housing. We got to get him enrolled in class. Got to make sure all this stuff happens. Okay, we got an early enrollee, so we got to do classes sooner. All that stuff.
Well, today's super special. It kind of becomes official, even though I feel like some of them, if they came on their visits in the spring, I've just known them for so long, and I'm like, I can't believe they haven't signed yet, But it's fun and it's exciting day, and I remember my signing day, and how fun it is to make it actually official, so it's kind of take a break from those sort of things and the paperwork that needs to get in and this and just kind of enjoy the day and celebrate the class that we've put together.
Social media, we talked about being a big piece of the recruiting process now, but I noticed when I went into Dave's office, and I remember this from my time getting recruited, there's still the personal touch. There's still the handwritten letters that happen and building the relationships. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's an important piece of it, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Dave and I are writing letters every single day, but it's really important, and we try to make them feel, when you come here, it really is a family. And I think when we get kids on campus and their parents, they really see that, and we just want them to feel super welcomed. And so that stuff matters, and it matters to us, and we know it matters to the recruits too. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I see you, we were talking about this signing day and the recruiting process, coaches going out on the road, but I see you busting your butt at every single game. You have the families, you have, multiple recruits at a time, and their families also being there getting the game day experience too. So you're working on this throughout the entire season as well, alongside the coaches.
Right, yeah. So the coaches kind of go out, and then once they decide, this is who we really like, we're going to hone in. And, that's kind of where I come in. And then certainly when they're on campus, I'm with them the whole time. But that's the part I really, really enjoy. I would consider myself a people person. So I love getting to know the recruits, and I love getting to know their families. It kind of brings the whole picture together. So that's the part I really, really enjoy, yeah.
What was the game in the moment where you got kind of captured behind Mike Leach on Twitter? Where you guys, what was that?
That was Stanford last year.
With the Blake Mazza kick when he kicked it? Fantastic. Yeah. If anybody, where can we find that? We need to send that out.
Oh no!
Kind of re-rash it.
Oh gosh! And what's funny is I came back to my phone after that game, and I had a bunch of people that had texted me, and I was like, "Oh no, I got caught on camera," and. So I was just like, oh, it's kind of funny. And I showed Dave, and he said, you should post that on Twitter,
100%.
And I was like, no, it's kind of weird. And he's like, oh, it'll be funny. And so I kind of just did it so the guys on our team would kind of get a laugh. And so we go, we get on the plane. So I turned my phone off. And when we landed back in Pullman, my phone had blown up. And I'm like, oh, no, this kind of went viral. So.
Oh, Super Dave's got you a little gift here. Oh, little Mike. Oh, there you go for the camera. He's taken the George Costanza Mike Leach had autographed by Mike Leach.
Is that signed?
And put it right next to Brittany's head.
It is. It's a photo that's not my number one favorite because I feel like it's inappropriate for me to be looking at
George Costanza. Well, it's George Costanza.
But it's it's done so well that I'm like, I don't.
It's an uncomfortably good Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. It's too good where I'm like, ugh, and Dave haunts me with it because I'm like, I feel. I can't look at Coach the same when I see that, so.
So good.
Yeah.
The thing I liked the most about that, if I'm going to try to dive in on any gleaning meaning from the Blake Mazza moment, is everybody on the sideline, everybody who has a role who isn't blocking and tackling in the game is in it.
Right.
And you're a competitor. You're an All-American softball player. You know what it's like. You know what these guys are going through. You're there. I've seen you there at practice.
Right.
We've spent a lot of time together at practice talking about what's going on and how kids are progressing and doing. You are as in it, and really in a lot of ways more personal with these guys. It's not just X's and O's for you. For sure. You really know them. You're very much the person who fans don't know is helping make Cougar football happen and go and have success because you're ensuring kids are at home here in Pullman. That's why I loved that moment because I was like, oh, Brittany's emotion. She's totally all in.
I see it. I'm ready to be like her get back coach sometimes. I'm just like, oh,
I know. Actually, I can't remember at Cal when we got a penalty. My husband, I was kind of close, and he was like, did you get a penalty? And I'm like,
that would be so
it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
That would be so
but
good.
I know, I'm like, I do need to watch it because I would be the one to get it because I am competitive. I'm super competitive. I want to win, and I want the guy, I see the evolution of the guys. I see what they do every day. So I want it for them more than anyone. And so, yeah, I get really into it. I'm super competitive, so I do need to watch it, but.
Well, it's easy to get swept up in the energy of it. I mean, I'm not even with the players and coaches like you are, and I get caught up in the energy of a game too. I mean, it's just natural.
Speaking of which, for you two, it'll be an odd sideline for you for the Cheez-It Bowl with both teams on one side.
Oh, I know, yeah.
There's going to be no divider. It's just they'll just spray a line. It's don't cross.
I probably will for sure need Jess to keep me back then. Someone goes after one of the guys or something. Yeah. It's what?
Well, this is great that we had this opportunity to get you on here and talk to you on the record and get Brittany locked in.
Everybody needs to know.
Yes.
Your name.
Key element to signing day and all that's going on here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great
for
to talk to you.
Thank you
so much. Brittany Thackery, Director of Player Personnel. We'll continue back here live with Jess and AB next year from Mike Leach's office. Early signing day 2019 continues. Back here live in Mike Leach's office, and an unexpected and special guest appearance here at Cameo, along with AB and Jess. We've got the quality control, Drew Hollingshead on the headset here.
Big time.
And now Drew, most famous internally in the Cougar football building for the worst sports takes and the most sports stupidity in America.
I feel like he's got to have something just burning right now.
What's the latest and greatest? Are you and Rockville and Tony still?
We got to set the stage. I mean, the most egregious one is his Babe Ruth take.
It's the worst sports take I've ever heard. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're wrong.
No.
Well, give the
just
people
gloss
the
it over real quick.
what is it?
He thinks. Go ahead.
Well, I don't think Babe Ruth is a very good baseball player. I mean, that's...
Yeah, and I don't like apple pie and the stars and stripes. Like, what are we talking about here?
It's not unfathomable to think that he would get struck out every at-bat today.
Today, yeah. No, I'm
See,
with you.
there you go.
I'm with
I'm
you.
slowly converting the...
You can't. How are you entertaining them?
Because you're talking about
But
two
you have to
different
afford
eras
him.
of baseball.
But you have to afford him the same benefits that today's players.
But we
have.
talked about this on the podcast. That's not the argument. The argument is if you took him out of that era and put him into this one,
he'd be terrible.
Yeah, it would
like
be bad.
I don't think he'd be terrible.
like saying, look,
I think he'd put a bat on a baseball for sure.
We can try to parse this and split hairs, but this is like Paul Bunyan couldn't chop trees and Johnny Appleseed doesn't know how to plant an
He'd be
apple.
no Bartolo Colon.
Well,
people just got.
Yeah, not to mention he was a pitcher before he was a hitter and was a really good.
So what do you got? You got any like hot NFL takes? Like what do you?
Oh man, I mean, we're watching Lamar Jackson just turn this league upside down.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Lamar?
To think, like guys like Butkus or Nagurski or any of these guys could tackle him is is like you guys have to.
I don't think I'm willing to follow you there.
But football, I take
Lamar Jackson would make Lawrence Taylor look like a child.
100%. To think Lawrence Taylor could tackle Lamar Jackson.
Bruce Smith couldn't touch him. Couldn't touch him.
I mean, just watch what he does on Sundays, and you come on, guys.
Oh, he's great. I mean, but so was Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah, he was tackling like Joe Theismann, and that's cool. But like, he can't tackle Lamar Jackson.
Amazing.
All right, would you trade Russell Wilson for Lamar Jackson from either team's perspective, straight up?
Nice.
Oh, this is straight
up,
player for player.
Yep, at the same age.
Oh wow.
I know this one. See, you can't immediately knee jerk this one.
This is tough.
I think. Okay, here's my opinion on this. I think what we're seeing in the NFL now is like you mentioned this earlier. The air raid was 10 years ahead of all the schemes you see they're doing now in the NFL. I think they've kind of turned a corner, and now they're implementing some of that like triple option type stuff.
Yeah.
And teams are slow to figure it out, and now he is a God-given athlete and probably one of the best in the league right now, but the scheme is so important for
It is. I mean, they were just talking about it. When they put it, what it was like 7 or 8 weeks ago when they came out the first with the diamond formation.
Sure,
in the backfield, and they're basically running. They're basically running wishbone. Right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's what they're doing.
Exactly.
Out
and
of
they're
shotgun.
And they're lining up in the pistol, and you can't defensive coordinators can't predict on what side they're running the ball or whatever. Their scheme is just so important to. And they drafted really well. Obviously, they've got Mark Ingram they picked up from the Saints, and the two tight ends that they have now. They're just what they're doing on offense is
so for all the
Seahawks
incredible fans, what you're saying is Lamar Jackson's 20 times the player that Russell Wilson is, and then you would
see. But I'm a big
and
no disrespect to, and I love Washington. I'm glad I moved up here from Texas. I'm a big Cowboy fan, so I can't fully admit. That the Seahawks are good just yet, but I like Russell Wilson. I'm a big Russell Wilson guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to give John Harbaugh so much credit for what he did, though, because you took this unique quarterback that a lot of people passed on. I mean, a lot. Every team passed on. For them to actually build around his skill set, especially for the years that he was under team control at such a low salary, you have to. You don't see that anymore. Everybody falls in love with a big arm and a 6'4" guy. Who might be mobile.
Sure.
And then you have innovative teams like the Ravens, like the Seahawks, that build around Russell Wilson. And
no doubt.
Look at where they are right now. They're the two Pro Bowl quarterbacks.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you right now, because for a guy with the worst sports takes in America, you really muted yourself.
Kind of reined it in.
You really pulled it back,
Yeah.
and you said something pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
That was a very, you had to weave your way to it. You couldn't really make a, Russell versus Lamar, but it made sense. That all made sense.
If there's anything you're going to get out of me besides hot sports opinions, it's going to be, I'm just here to disparage old eras of sports.
Right. That's yeah. But you went, you're talking by old, you took your 20 years ago's, for you that's old too.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, so John McEnroe versus
it didn't exist.
Nadal.
Yeah, I mean, Nadal every day. It's you can't. Those guys are
Agassi. Throw Agassi.
It's not even a comparison.
Yeah, I mean, Federer and Nadal, and
for Drew, Gardner Minshew's aging already. He's right.
Yeah, it's Gardner
old.
Gardner better start figuring some stuff out.
Yeah. He's got
he has to think, can I play in this next era of football?
How great is that? For the Cougar football complex and for you guys to see Andre and Jalen and Gardner and for a month it was Luke and Gardner both starting.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, that's what a fantastic year.
It was so awesome. And we were sitting in here the other day with watching Gardner play the Raiders and just how awesome that last drive was.
Right.
And we were kind of it kind of validated a lot of thoughts we had about him, because it was okay, he had the ball in the final minute. There was no doubt in anybody's mind that they're about to go down and score and win this game right here. I mean, and that's just – and you can see it because it was the same feeling we had going down and beating Cal or going down and beating Stanford. It was just that, he's rallied that team around him, and he's got everybody playing about as hard as he can, about as hard as he plays, and that's – it was just really cool to see. And then Andre doing the stuff he's doing, Jalen making an impact week to week. Wow. It's been incredible. So – yeah, just you don't really realize, you kind of come back to it, you don't really realize how special that team was and all those guys that were on that team. But I mean, they're making plays in the NFL now, and it's been really, and obviously helped in recruiting too, which is good. So, able to show those guys off to some of these recruits has been awesome.
Did it help in recruiting? I mean, did you get that sense that it's that immediate? I mean, these are rookies.
Sure. I mean, recruiting is about development, right? Those kids want to be able to see, if I come to Washington State, I want to be able to, and part of the recruiting process is, can I be developed to, go play in the NFL if that's my ultimate goal? And it's important to show off stuff like that. Or we have a starting quarterback in the NFL, two at one time when Luke was starting, a starting safety in the NFL, starting left tackle. Deon Buchanan is playing really well. Joe Dahl.
And to be fair, we kind of touched on it with, Mason a little bit, is that, offensively with the air raid, there has been question marks, from an NFL perspective about quarterbacks, about offensive linemen,
right?
Even skill players to some degree. Well, do these guys translate to the NFL? And and obviously, again, the now the NFL is moving more towards what the air raid is, and the college game. Mm-hmm. It makes it easier, but I mean, literally, you're saying left tackle translates, quarterback translates, right? And so, I mean, I think especially offensively, it helps with recruiting.
No doubt. And it's been, and kind of to that exact point was, a guy like Anthony Gordon has benefited from this kind of transition. A guy who's a one-year starter, but he lights up the world, throws for 300 yards, got invited to the Senior Bowl. And that's three straight Senior Bowls where a Washington State quarterback's,
that's
been invited.
A huge – I don't think people realize how big of an accomplishment that is. That's incredible.
You don't really see that very often.
No.
But to your point, it's those guys in the NFL say, okay, now let me see this kid at Washington State. Let's get him in here. Let's kind of evaluate because, he's going to be able to do some of the things we're going to ask him to do, and as the NFL starts to progress and move forward. So it's been really cool. It's been awesome in recruiting, that's for sure.
And we've talked about in the age of social media too that it's branding and marketing as much as it is anything else.
No doubt.
So getting that just on an NFL level, getting the school's name in these kids' faces and heads.
Exactly.
It's just another cherry on the cake.
Exactly. And I heard Brittany in here earlier talking about how that wasn't. And Brittany and I are almost the same age. It wasn't even. Social media wasn't even a thing when I was coming out of high school. So it was, to be able to brand yourself and have sort of a market for, our offense and our defense and the kind of the style that we play, and to be able to showcase guys that have played in our offense and defense that have played in the NFL to these young kids in high school. It's been pretty invaluable.
I'll let you go after this, but the Friday game at Houston where we saw Brinker and his NFL alma mater, if you will, the team that drafted him, and then your alma mater down there. That was a pretty cool Friday game.
It was
year.
awesome.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool. It was kind of a unique situation because just how things turn out and how much of a small world it is. Guy that recruited me, Dana Holgrensen's now the head coach. Two guys that I played with are his receiver coach and his running back coach. Just like it all worlds kind of collide, and I'm just glad we left with a win so they wouldn't have bragging rights for a whole 365.
Thank you, buddy.
I appreciate it, guys.
You. Drew Hollingshead here on the staff. We'll take our final break, come back, put a bow on it. It's signing day, early signing day, 2019 here from Coach's office. The QB, AB, Jess, and yours truly here to put a bow on this thing. We've got about 3-4 minutes left live here in Coach's office. AB, it feels like another successful class for Washington State. So some needs filled, a lot of players that I know that they're excited to work with Tyson with, but also some secondary athletes, a safety, a couple of safeties, and a corner that they feel like are real physical.
Yeah, I mean, in the end for Washington State, a lot of the success that they've had the past few years is attributed to offensive line and offensive line development. So to get 5, quality offensive linemen that, Mason Miller feels like they can get in the weight room and develop and have a chance, that just, continues to fill that room with athletes that are going to help. The air raid doesn't work if you don't have offensive linemen. It's just the reality. And it also doesn't work if you don't have a quarterback. So getting, Jaden Deloria, a guy that we talked about his pedigree and his intangibles to come in and kind of be, I think the crown jewel of this class means a lot. But then I look at the rest of it, and I think there are definitely some needs that you feel. You get some young wide receivers in that are, you got, potentially an inside guy in Joey Hobart, and then your outside guys with Smith and Pelham. Defensively, D-line and rush. I mean, that's, again, one of those things where a lot of the success for Washington State's defense in the past has been being able to rush the passer. So to get guys like Moon Ashby at 6'4", 200 pounds who can put on weight, I think that's a great one. Justin Lorenz, who's, a D tackle or a D end in high school, is probably going to fill out to be a D tackle. I mean, I think those are areas of need they answered. And I think moving into the next signing period, or the second signing day, knowing you have space to go get some defensive backs, maybe, go fill some some best player available positions of need, I think it's really important. So overall, a good start.
Jess, you're going to go back to the west side and have all kinds of purple people talking to you about Billy Joe Hobart and Joey Hobart and all the little Husky
really
Coup crossover.
I work with Brock Ewart on a regular basis, and I'll see him on Tuesday, and that'll be a very fun conversation to have. But it was kind of cool to see Billy Joe tweeting out about how proud he was of his kid. Just saying, I never thought I'd say it, but I'm 100% in. Go Cougs. And I mean, I look at all these freshmen here, and each coach that we've talked to has talked about the guy having the right attitude, the right personality, coming in here, fitting the culture, and then talking. You were talking about the offensive line. I look at 5 young offensive linemen. It tells me that there's a lot to be happy about with the depth at that position that they already have. No JUCO guys coming in quite yet, so that they didn't go out and just grab guys immediately, having to fill positions of need. I think that says a lot for it. But the culture and the guys that had other big offers and said, no, I'm staying true to Washington State. People who didn't get any other offers because they were blatantly honest about the fact that they're going to go to Washington State. We were talking about Dylan McGinnis. Anyway, I love hearing that kind of thing, and it seems like these guys not only found guys that fit their program from a football perspective, but fit the culture that they've built, over 8 years of hard work here.
We got to get ready for the Cheez-It Bowl.
Wow.
Yeah, we do.
We got to get Cheez-It Bowl ready. We're gonna do an hour from right near the ballpark, and for those who want to attend, it will be a really good time. It's been slammed the last 4 years. Last 4 bowls, it's been shoulder to shoulder, and we got to figure out how to get the triple option figured out. How do you call that and all that
I've
good
been
stuff?
talking to every Air Force person I know, and they can't even describe it to me.
Right?
It's like guys who played defensive line for Air Force, and they're like,
easy.
It's really hard.
I scouted, the Army-Navy games to get my triple option mind right.
Yeah.
So I feel good about it.
I love the Army-Navy game.
It's the best.
I think it's like all the best parts of college football. Yeah. I love that it gets its own showcase too. That
it should.
It really is pretty awesome.
I think it's the I have some family, very partisan Navy family. They're all in jerseys and they go to the game a lot. And hey, this is a ton of fun. A huge thanks to Coach Leach for letting us barge into his office.
Yeah.
He'll be here any minute. And Drew Hollingshead. And
always appreciate the backdrop.
Oh, it's great fun. Yeah, we have a great time. Much thanks to Super Dave, to Bobby, and to Bill, Bobby Allworth, Bill Stevens do such a great job helping us out here, and everybody who's a part of this. Jerry Kylo gets us on the air as always, and to Prenny and everybody does Scott Hoffman. Everybody does such a good job. Thank you to Jake Eisenberg back in the studio. Signing day 2019, early signing day, 16 new Cougs, and maybe some more coming as we go through this day and over the next 2. And thanks to you two guys. This was great.
Thank you,
great
buddy.
Fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Go Cougs. Thanks, guys. Go Cougs. Thanks for listening.
Cougs.